Bullshit Jobs, A Theory, by David Graeber. Introduction. Imagine a soldier. He needs to move his computer from his office to a new one, just 2 rooms down the hall. A simple task, right? He could just pick it up and walk it over in about 30 seconds. But that's not what happens. Instead, the soldier has to fill out a form. That form goes to an IT company, which is a subcontractor for the German military. The people at the IT company read it, approve it, and forward it to another company, a logistics firm, which is a subcontractor for the IT company. The logistics firm then approves the move and requests personnel from yet another company, a subcontractor for them. And that's where a man named Kurt comes in. Kurt gets an email telling him to drive hundreds of miles in a rental car to the military barracks. When he arrives, he fills out more forms. He unplugs the computer, puts it in a box, and seals it. Then, a man from the logistics firm carries that box 2 rooms down the hall. Kurt follows him, unseals the box, fills out another form, plugs the computer back in, and gets a few signatures. Then he drives hundreds of miles back home. For a computer to be moved about 15 feet, 2 people drove for a combined 10 hours and filled out 15 pages of paperwork, all at the cost of hundreds of euros to the taxpayer. Kurt's job, he realized, was completely, utterly, and profoundly useless. If his position were eliminated, the world would not be worse off. In fact, it would probably be a little bit better. What you've just heard is a true story, and it's at the heart of one of the most important and unsettling books of the 21st century, Bullshit Jobs, A Theory by the brilliant anthropologist David Graeber. This book began as a simple essay, a hunch that Graeber had about the modern world of work. He wondered, what if millions of us are like Kurt? What if we're spending our days, our weeks, our lives, performing tasks that we secretly believe do not need to be performed? The essay went viral, crashing servers and being translated into over a dozen languages almost overnight. It sparked a global conversation because it gave a name to a silent, soul-crushing misery that countless people felt but never had the words to describe. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this phenomenon. By the end of our journey, you will understand not just what a bullshit job is, but why these pointless jobs are secretly taking over our economy. You'll discover the 5 major types of these jobs, and you might just recognize your own, or one you've had in the past. Most importantly, you will understand why a society that could have given us 15-hour work weeks and lives of leisure has instead chosen to chain us to our desks, and what we can do to finally break free. This isn't just a book summary, it's an awakening. Book summary. Let's start with a mystery. Back in 1930, a very smart economist named John Maynard Keynes made a bold prediction. He said that by the end of the century, technology would have advanced so much that in countries like the United States or Great Britain, we would only be working 15 hours a week. And technically, he was right. We have the technology. We could have done it. And yet, it didn't happen. In fact, the opposite happened. Technology, instead of freeing us, was used to find new ways to make us all work more. To achieve this, millions of jobs had to be created that are, effectively, pointless. This is the puzzle that David Graeber sets out to solve. He begins with a simple, provocative idea. Huge numbers of people spend their entire working lives performing tasks they secretly believe are unnecessary. This isn't just a hunch. A poll in the UK found that a staggering 37% of workers were sure their job made no meaningful contribution to the world. In Holland, that number was 40%. Think about that. We're not talking about people who hate their jobs. A cleaner might hate scrubbing toilets, but they know that toilets need to be cleaned. A garbage collector might dislike the smell, but they know that if they didn't collect the garbage, the city would grind to a halt. We're talking about people in often well-paying, respectable office jobs who look at what they do all day and think, this serves no purpose at all. So what, exactly, is a bullshit job? Graeber is very precise here. A bullshit job is not just a bad job. For that, he uses a different term, a shit job. Shit jobs are useful and necessary, but they often come with terrible pay, poor conditions, and a lack of respect. Think of cleaners, delivery drivers, or farm workers. Their work is vital, but they are often treated badly. A bullshit job, on the other hand, is often the opposite. It might come with a fancy title, a comfortable office, and a great salary. The only problem is that it's completely pointless. Here is Graeber's final working definition. A bullshit job is a form of paid employment that is so completely pointless, unnecessary, or even harmful that even the employee cannot justify its existence, even though, as part of the conditions of employment, the employee feels obliged to pretend that this is not the case. The key here is the subjective element. The person doing the job knows it's bullshit. They might not admit it at the office party. They might not even admit it to their family. But in the quiet moments, they know. They know that if their job disappeared tomorrow, it would make no difference whatsoever. This definition helps us understand what a bullshit job isn't. A mafia hitman, for example, has a harmful job, but not a bullshit one. He knows what he does, he's not pretending it's for the good of humanity, and he believes in his own way that his work serves a purpose within his organization. A bullshit job, however, almost always involves a layer of pretense, a kind of professional fraud where everyone is playing a part. To help us navigate this strange world, Graeber identified 5 major categories of bullshit jobs. As we go through them, see if any sound familiar. First, there are the flunkies. Flunky jobs exist only to make someone else look or feel important. Think of a doorman at a fancy apartment building whose only job is to press a button to open a door that residents could easily open themselves. Or a receptionist at a company that gets one phone call a day. The company doesn't need a full-time receptionist, but it feels it has to have one to be taken seriously. Having underlings is a badge of prestige. Graeber tells the story of Jack, a young man hired as a cold caller for a stockbroker. His job wasn't to sell stocks. His job was to call potential clients and say, "I'm calling on behalf of a very important broker who is too busy making money to call you himself." Jack's entire existence was a performance, a prop to make his boss look more successful than he really was. He was, in his own words, a totem figure, paid to be a status symbol. Second, we have the goons. Goons are people whose jobs have an aggressive element and exist only because other people employ them. The classic example is a national army. A country only needs an army because other countries have armies. If no one had one, no one would need one. The same is true for most corporate lawyers, PR specialists, lobbyists, and telemarketers. Many people in these jobs are haunted by the feeling that their work doesn't just lack a positive contribution, but actively makes the world a little bit worse. Think of Tom, the special effects artist who got paid a 6-figure salary. He loved the part of his job where he made dinosaurs attack spaceships for movies. But more and more, his work involved advertising. He used digital trickery to make shampoo seem shinier or toothpaste seem whiter, making viewers feel inadequate about their own lives, and then exaggerating the effectiveness of the product sold to fix the problem. He saw his job as manufacturing demand by making people feel bad. That, he concluded, was pure bullshit. Third on the list are the duct tapers. Duct taper jobs exist only because of a glitch or a fault in an organization that no one can be bothered to fix properly. Instead of solving the underlying problem, the company hires someone whose entire job is to patch it up. It's like discovering a leak in your roof and, instead of hiring a roofer to fix it, you just hire someone to stand under the leak with a bucket and empty it every few hours. We heard about Nori, a programmer hired to work with a supposedly revolutionary algorithm that was meant to mimic human speech. The problem was, the algorithm was complete gibberish. It didn't work. So Nori's real job became writing simple, primitive code to cover up the fact that his boss's invention was a failure. He was the human duct tape holding a broken system together. Many of these jobs involve tasks that could easily be automated, but for one reason or another, they aren't. Someone's job is to copy and paste data from one spreadsheet to another, all day long. Or, as one person reported, their job used to be automated, but after a disagreement between managers, the automation was removed, and now a human has to do it. Fourth, we have the box tickers. Box tickers exist so that an organization can claim it is doing something that, in fact, it is not doing. The work is a performance, a ritual to create the appearance of action. Think of Betsy, who worked in a care home. Her primary duty was to interview residents about their recreational preferences and fill out a form. These forms were then filed away in a binder and on a computer and never looked at again. The paperwork annoyed the residents, who knew it was pointless. Betsy's most important task, in the eyes of her boss, was the completion of these forms. The actual entertaining of the residents was a secondary concern. The forms allowed the care home to tick a box and say, "Yes, we are attending to our residents' needs," even if the process itself got in the way of actually doing so. This extends to the corporate world in countless ways. Companies create glossy internal magazines that no one reads, or commission expensive reports that are never used. Also, an executive can say, "Yes, we did a report on that." It's all part of a grand corporate theater. Finally, the fifth category, the taskmasters. Taskmasters fall into two types. The first are those who do nothing but assign work to others who don't need supervision. They are unnecessary superiors. The second type is more insidious. They are the bullshit generators. Their job is to create bullshit tasks for others to do, or even to invent new bullshit jobs. Graeber tells the story of Chloe, an academic dean at a university whose job was to provide strategic leadership. The problem was, she had no actual power. She had no budget, no authority over anything that mattered. All she could do was write strategic vision documents that she knew no one would ever implement. But she was given her own small empire of staff, a personal assistant, a policy support officer, and a research fellow. Her job, as she put it, became making up work for myself and for other people. This is how bullshit multiplies. An unnecessary manager needs to justify their existence, so they invent pointless tasks for their underlings. This often involves creating more paperwork, more reports, and more meetings, which in turn requires hiring more people to manage the new bullshit. It's a self-perpetuating cycle. These 5 categories, flunkies, goons, duct tapers, box tickers, and taskmasters, help us map out the strange landscape of pointless work. But this brings us to the emotional core of the book. Why does having a bullshit job make people so profoundly miserable? After all, on the surface, it sounds like a dream. You're getting paid, often very well, to do nothing. You can read novels at your desk, surf the internet, perfect your French. What's not to love? This is where Graeber delves into what he calls spiritual violence. He shares the powerful story of Eric, a young man from a working-class family, the first to go to university. He landed what seemed like a perfect post-graduation job as an interface administrator for a design firm. His task was to manage a new software system meant to help the company's offices collaborate. But he soon discovered the truth. The system was a buggy, unwanted piece of junk that no one used. One partner had pushed for it, but the others secretly sabotaged it. Eric was hired precisely because he had no IT experience and couldn't actually fix it. He was a box ticker, a symbol that the company was collaborating. He had nothing to do. At first, he enjoyed it. He read novels, took 3-hour lunches, and even started taking fake business trips to London just to hang out with friends, all on the company's dime. He tried to quit, but his boss offered him a raise. He tried to get fired, showing up drunk, unshaven, wearing the same shirt for days, but they wouldn't fire him. They needed him to do nothing. The purposelessness began to eat away at him. It wasn't just boredom, it was a profound sense of falseness. He wasn't living his own life, he wasn't even living his own lie. He was an unwilling actor in someone else's absurd corporate play. The experience eventually led to a complete breakdown on a train station platform. He finally quit and spent the next 6 months living in a squat, growing his own vegetables, just to feel like he was doing something real again. Eric's story reveals a deep truth about human nature, one that modern economics completely misses. Economists assume we are all rational actors trying to get the most reward for the least effort. If that were true, we should be delighted by bullshit jobs. But we're not. Graeber points to the work of the psychologist Carl Grews, who discovered the pleasure at being the cause. From infancy, we experience profound joy when we realize we can have a predictable effect on the world. A baby who learns she can push a pencil and make it roll will do it again and again, squealing with delight. This is the very foundation of our sense of self. We know we exist because we can make things happen. A bullshit job is a direct assault on this fundamental human need. It tells you that your actions have no impact, that your presence is meaningless. A human being who is unable to make a meaningful impact on the world, in a very real sense, ceases to exist. It's not just that you're bored, it's that you're being denied the very proof of your own existence. This is the spiritual violence at the heart of the problem. So, if these jobs are so destructive, and so widespread, why are they proliferating? Why has our economy become a massive engine for creating pointlessness? Graeber dismisses the easy answers. It's not just government bureaucracy. In fact, the data shows that administrative bloat has grown twice as fast in private universities as in public ones. It's not just complexity either. The real answer, he argues, lies in the rise of what he calls managerial feudalism. Over the last 50 years, capitalism has changed. It's less and less about making and selling things and more about finance. The financial sector doesn't really produce anything. It primarily moves money around, extracting a cut at every step. This has fused the world of corporate management with the world of finance. The goal is no longer efficiency in the traditional sense. In a feudal system, a lord's power isn't measured by how efficiently his peasants grow wheat. It's measured by how many retainers, vassals, and flunkies he has under his command. The more people who report to you, the more important you are. Modern corporations now run on a similar logic. Managers have a powerful incentive not to eliminate redundant jobs, because their own power and prestige are measured by the number of subordinates they have. This creates endless, pointless layers of hierarchy. We see it in universities, where the number of administrators has ballooned while the number of teachers has stayed the same. We see it in Hollywood, where a simple script has to pass through a dozen executives with titles like Executive Creative Vice President for Television, each of whom feels compelled to make some useless change just to justify their existence. This system is not about producing better products or services. It's a political system for distributing corporate wealth upwards, creating a new aristocracy of managers who, in turn, need to surround themselves with their own courts of flunkies, box tickers, and goons. This brings us to the final, and perhaps most disturbing, question. Why do we, as a society, not object to this? Why do we put up with it? The answer, Graeber suggests, is rooted in our strange, contradictory morality about work. On the one hand, we have a deep-seated belief, inherited from centuries of religious tradition, that work is a virtue in itself. We're told that work builds character, that it's a form of discipline and self-sacrifice. The idea that someone could get something for nothing feels morally wrong. On the other hand, we have an intuitive sense of social value. We know that a nurse or a teacher provides more benefit to humanity than a corporate lobbyist. Yet, we live in a system where there seems to be a general rule: the more obviously your work benefits other people, the less you are likely to be paid for it. This creates a toxic political dynamic, a balance of resentments. People trapped in pointless but well-paid jobs come to resent those who get to do meaningful work. You can see it in the media outrage directed at teachers or auto workers for daring to ask for middle-class wages and benefits. The unspoken message is, you get to teach children, you get to make cars, you have real jobs, and you have the nerve to expect good pay, too? This resentment is a powerful political force. It directs our anger away from the system that creates this absurdity and toward each other. The feeling that work should be a form of suffering, and that anyone not engaged in some kind of intense work discipline deserves nothing, is extraordinarily convenient for those in power. A happy, productive population with free time on their hands is a mortal danger. A population that is overworked, miserable, and resentful of each other is not. So what can be done? Is there any way out of this trap? Graeber concludes by pointing to a solution that is gaining momentum around the world: universal basic income, or UBI. The idea is simple: give every citizen a basic, unconditional stipend, enough to live on, with no strings attached. UBI proposes to do something radical: to detach survival from work. Its effects would be revolutionary. First, it would obliterate the enormous, humiliating bureaucracy designed to police the poor. All the box tickers and taskmasters whose job it is to make life difficult for people seeking benefits would become instantly obsolete. Second, and most importantly, it would effectively abolish bullshit jobs. Think about it. If you had a guaranteed income, would you choose to spend your days color-coordinating mind maps or transferring data from one spreadsheet to another in an office where you're not allowed to speak? Of course not. People would only do jobs that they felt were genuinely useful, interesting, or enjoyable. The market for bullshit jobs would collapse overnight. Critics of UBI always raise the same objection: if you pay people to do nothing, they will do nothing. The streets will fill up with lazy parasites. But as this entire book demonstrates, that fear is based on a complete misunderstanding of human nature. The vast majority of people, if given the freedom, would not choose to do nothing. They would choose to do something creative, something useful, something that contributes to their communities. They would write novels, invent new recipes, start bands, volunteer, care for their loved ones, or come up with projects we can't even imagine. The irony is that we already have a society where up to 40% of people are effectively paid to do nothing. But it's a miserable, soul-destroying, and incredibly inefficient nothing. UBI simply proposes that we trust people to find their own purpose. It proposes that we stop valuing work as self-sacrifice and start valuing it for its real contribution to human life. It offers a path to a world where we can finally claim the freedom that technology has long promised us, the freedom to live, not just to work. Commentary. As we come to the end of our exploration of bullshit jobs, it's hard not to feel a sense of profound unease, mixed with a strange kind of relief. The unease comes from recognizing the truth in what David Graeber describes. We see it all around us: the pointless meetings, the endless paperwork, the friends in jobs they can't quite explain. The relief comes from finally having a name for it. Graeber didn't just write a book, he gave us a language to talk about a secret, collective pain. The most powerful lesson, for me, is the book's challenge to our most fundamental beliefs about work. We have been taught to see work as the center of our lives, the primary source of our identity and self-worth. We ask children, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And we expect them to answer with a job title. We meet a new person and one of the first questions we ask is, "So, what do you do?" We have built our civilization on the altar of work, believing that it is inherently noble, character-building, and necessary. Graeber forces us to ask, what if that's all a lie? What if the primary function of much of our work is not to produce anything useful, but simply to maintain a system of social control? What if it's not about creating value, but about discipline and the allocation of power? This is a radical and deeply unsettling idea, but it explains so much about the modern world that feels broken and absurd. It explains why, in an age of incredible technological potential, we feel more exhausted and spiritually empty than ever. The book is also a powerful defense of human nature. Against the cynical view that people are fundamentally lazy and will only work if coerced by the threat of starvation, Graeber shows that the opposite is true. Our deepest drive is to be a cause, to have a meaningful impact on the world. To be denied this is a form of psychological torture. The misery of a bullshit job is not the misery of boredom, it is the misery of purposelessness. It's the pain of knowing that the one life you have is being spent on something that does not matter. So, what can we do with this knowledge? How can we apply these profound lessons in our own lives, starting today? First, and perhaps most simply, we can start the conversation. The power of Graeber's idea is that it breaks a taboo. We are not supposed to admit that our jobs are pointless. But once you start asking, you will be astonished at what you find. Ask a friend, a family member, a colleague, do you feel like your work makes a meaningful contribution to the world? You don't have to use the term bullshit job. Just open the door to an honest conversation. Giving people permission to speak their truth is the first step toward change. Second, we can consciously redefine our own sense of value. Our economic system is brilliant at assigning a price to things, but it is terrible at recognizing their true worth. Spend a week actively noticing the caring labor all around you. The person who cleans the office at night. The bus driver who gets you safely to your destination. The grocery store clerk who stocks the shelves. These are the people whose work holds our world together, yet they are the ones our system values the least. Acknowledging their contribution, even just to yourself or with a simple thank you, is a small act of rebellion against a system that has its priorities backward. And third, if you find yourself trapped in a job that feels pointless, find your real work. This doesn't necessarily mean quitting tomorrow. It means reclaiming your sense of purpose, even in a small way. Carve out 1 hour a day, or even just 30 minutes, for a project that feels truly meaningful to you. Learn a new skill. Write that story. Volunteer for a cause you believe in. Create something, fix something, help someone. A bullshit job steals your time and your energy, but it doesn't have to steal your soul. By consciously dedicating a part of your life to work that matters to you, you are fighting a form of spiritual warfare and winning. That was a deep dive into bullshit jobs, a theory by David Graeber. We've journeyed through the core ideas today, but I have to be honest with you, a summary like this is just the map. The real treasure is found when you explore the territory yourself. The true power of this book lies in the hundreds of personal stories, the sharp wit, and the profound humanity that fills its pages. This overview is designed to help you decide if this journey is one you want to take. If anything we've talked about today has sparked a question, a frustration, or a flicker of recognition in you, then I urge you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning a new theory, it's about understanding a hidden part of your own world, and it might just change the way you see your life forever. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if this exploration has brought you any value, please consider showing your support by liking this summary and subscribing to the channel. That way, You won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book from the world's most brilliant minds. Let's keep learning and growing together.